It is time to actually start working on page components. We already have navigation and can switch between menu items. So now it's time to show a particular page component whenever we select different menu items. All components that are going to represent our pages we're gonna store in Pages folder. Let's create new folder Pages and our first page component with the name the timeline. There can be only one the timeline component on the page, and that is why I have used prefix the in the component name. For now we're gonna just place in here only one h1 element with text timeline, just to test if our page component will be properly shown. And let's go ahead and also create remaining page components. Second page will be the activities. It's going to have the same markup. We will just change the text in here. And the last page component we will create will be called the progress. Also change text in here, and now let's go back to the main app component. And now we're going to use those three page components within main tag in here. Let's add those components: the timeline, the activities, and the progress. And as with other components, in order to use these components here, we should firstly import them. So let's add import statements for every component. We're gonna import those components from Pages folder. And as you can see in Vue DevTools, we got those three components under App component, and their content is shown on the page on the left. And now we're going to connect those pages to menu items, so that when clicking a particular menu item, we're gonna display only one page component. And for that we're gonna leverage one more Vue directive called vShow. It works almost the same as conditional directive vIf, but instead of completely removing the element on which that vIf directive is used, vShow is just going to hide element on which it is used by modifying element's CSS property display and setting its value to none. Whenever expression we're going to specify in this vShow directive turns false, but the element will still be present in the DOM structure. It will be just hidden. And now let's specify condition which is gonna determine when to show timeline page. And we will have to show this page whenever a reactive variable current page equals to constant page timeline. In other words, when current page will be timeline. And just like that we're gonna use this vShow directive on other page components. Let's copy it and paste on every page component and use appropriate constants. Second page name is stored in page activities constant, and the third page name is stored in page progress constant. And here we got one problem. The thing is that this current page variable is defined within the now component. So in this app component we don't have access to current page variable and cannot reference it in the template. And to fix it, we're gonna move the definition of this current page variable from the now component to app component. Firstly, we will move import, which imports all page names, to app component. And then we're gonna extract all code which defines current page reactive variable, as well as normalize page hash function, and move it to app component. And this way we're gonna be able to control current page from within root component. Let's not forget and also move import of ref function in this app component. We will also need to modify path which imports constants a little bit. And now by looking at developer console we see that we got one JS error. And this error is related to undefined variable now items. This happened within app component. And the reason for that is because we use undefined variable now items within this normalize page hash function. So we'll have to change this part of code a little bit. This time we're gonna manually create an array which contains all page names. Let's copy over all constants in this array. And since we're still gonna need those constants inside of the now component, let's copy this import and add it inside of the now component. Because as you can see, those constants are still being referenced inside of this now items object. Alright, before checking it in the browser, let's modify import path for constants and take a look at Vue DevTools. Here we select root component app, and on the right side we see current page reactive variable, which currently holds page name timeline. And the thing is that this variable is also needed inside of the now component. And somehow we'll have to pass this variable inside of the now component. And in Vue, we do this by so-called props. Props are custom attributes that can be specified on the component. So for example, if I'll have to pass current page property in the now component, I'm gonna have to specify custom attribute with the name current page. Note that I use kebab case notation to specify attribute names. This is a naming convention of specifying attribute names within HTML. And now I'm gonna have to specify the value which I'm going to pass as value for current page property. Let's use the current page variable, because this variable stores current page name. This is a reactive variable which we earlier moved from the now component in this app component. But that's not all, we'll also have to explicitly specify which properties components should accept. And we do this by using define props macro inside of that component which is going to accept props. In our case, this component is the now. In this component I'm going to use macro define props. Also notice that we don't need to explicitly import those macros. And to this macro we'll need to pass array which contains of property names that we will pass from outside in this component. In our case, we only have to specify one property with the name current page. And now as you can see, by selecting the now component in Vue DevTools, on the right side we see a new section called props, with the list of all the properties which are being passed to this, the now component, from the app component. And by switching between now items, we can see that the value of the current page property also changes. But the way how it is implemented right now is not a good practice. Because if we take a look inside of the now component, in the template we see this assignment inside of click listener, which directly modifies value of the current page property. And changing properties passed from parent components inside of child components is not good, so we're going to have to find another way of how we can modify value of this current page variable. And since this current page variable is defined inside of app component, it should also be modified in app component, but not in the now component. So we need to find a way to notify app component from the now component whenever user clicks on any menu item. In other words, we're gonna have to establish communication between child component and parent component. And in Vue, this is done by using custom events. Child component will fire a particular event, and parent component can listen for that event and do all the work it needs to do whenever a particular event is fired. And to declare events which can be fired from a particular component, we use another macro called define emits. This macro accepts array of event names, and we can call those custom events anything we like. So the fact of user clicking on menu item will be called navigate in our case. And now to fire this event from within this component, we should use an object, which we can get from this define emits call. And the object we will receive will be so-called event emitter. And now we can use this object in template whenever we need to fire a particular event. So instead of modifying property current page directly in this click listener, we're gonna use our new event emitter, which we can call directly. First argument will be event name that we wish to fire, and as a second argument we can optionally pass data, which will be event payload and will be sent along with this event. In our case, we're gonna send this event to the app component and also include page name that we'll need to switch to, and the access to the page that the user has clicked on. From here we can get by using page variable. And finally, all we have to do after firing this event is to listen for this event from the parent component. We do this by using vueOnDirective on that component which is fired that event. In our case, the component which fired event is the now. Right here, let's specify vueOnDirective, and as an argument to this directive, we pass custom event name called navigate. Let's also use shorthand form of this vueOnDirective by using add symbol. And inside of this directive, we're gonna have to specify instructions that should be executed whenever this event is fired. And since we'll need to modify the value of the reactive current page variable, we need to somehow get access to the event data passed along with this event, and this data will be page name. In the parent component, data passed along with a particular event can be obtained by using a special variable called $event. And just like that, we're gonna assign the value of the currently selected page to current page reactive variable. And since this current page variable is reactive, it's gonna trigger reactive DOM updates where this current page variable is used. As you can see, it is used to show a particular page component. So based on updates, Vue is gonna reactively update this part of DOM, reevaluate conditions in VShow directives, and display appropriate page. Let's take a look in Vue DevTools. While the Now component is being selected on the right side, we can see that the new section has appeared, called Event Listeners. And here we can see which events can be fired from within the Now component. Basically those events that we have specified inside of define emits macro. And let's see the whole flow again, starting from the app component. So initially current page variable stores value of the page progress, and this value is being passed to the Now component as props. And now if we start clicking on menu items, it's gonna trigger that event navigate, which parent component app listens to. This component will handle this event and assign the name of the newly selected page to the reactive current page variable. And since this reactive variable is being passed to the Now component, it is going to re-render the Now component and highlight appropriate menu item based on the new value of current page prop. And as we can see on the page, menu item that we have clicked on is receiving appropriate background color.